Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio anzi e benvenuti con il webinar organizzato da Anra e AXA Excel Marine, come proteggere il trasporto merci in tempo di crisi. È un evento che si inserisce all'interno dell'AXA Excel Insurance Academy, che è al terzo anno di realizzazione, e nel panel con Carlo Cosimi, vicepresidente Anra e Head of Corporate Insurance and Risk Financing di Saipem, abbiamo Michela Celli, Underwriting Manager Marine Italy di AXA Excel, e Pascal Mattei, Marine Risk Consulting Manager di AXA Excel. Qualche indicazione, oltre alle solite, che siete collegati con l'audio disattivato e potete interagire con noi tramite la chat, aspettiamo le vostre domande. Per coloro che dovranno sostenere alla fine del webinar il test per ottenere le ore di formazione valide per l'aggiornamento RUI-IVAS, potete trovare le istruzioni su come fare il test nei documenti allegati all'interno della dashboard, nel caso non le abbiate già lette via email, e vi daremo una terza chance perché alla fine proietteremo le istruzioni mentre fate il test. Detto questo, vi auguro un buon webinar e lascio la parola a Carlo.
Grazie Chiara, l'obiettivo di questo pomeriggio, come hai detto, è quello di verificare con i nostri ospiti che effetti ha prodotto la pandemia, il Covid-19 sulle coperture e comunque in generale sul traffico marittimo in particolare nel mondo. Sappiamo benissimo che la pandemia, complice anche il lockdown, ha creato grandi difficoltà al traffico internazionale delle merci, sia perché molti porti in giro per il mondo sono stati chiusi o hanno visto limitata la loro attività proprio per la riduzione del personale. Quindi c'è stato proprio un ritardo, se vogliamo, una serie di ritardi spesso a catena, lungo la catena appunto della supply chain, quindi dell'approvvigionamento sia delle materie prime ma anche nella distribuzione, nella consegna dei prodotti finiti. Tutto questo ha coinvolto diversi attori, armatori, vettori, spedizioneri e quindi anche con dei problemi per i clienti di questi trasporti. Questa riduzione del personale, questa chiusura evidentemente ha determinato in molti casi una congestione nei porti o dei ritardi sia nello sdoganamento delle merci sia nelle operazioni di carico e di scarico delle stesse, con evidenti problemi anche per le merci deperibili, per il loro corretto stoccaggio, per la loro tante volte la cancellazione stessa del viaggio, altre volte ci sono stati magari delle deviazioni su dei porti non originari, ma che hanno visto la necessità anche di uno sbarco e un reimbarco per un secondo viaggio per la tratta finale. Ecco, tutto questo bisogna capire, vorrei capire con i nostri amici che situazione hanno visto come osservatori, come attori, come primari attori assicurativi nel mondo da questa situazione e quali potrebbero essere gli effetti anche post-Covid, visto che ormai siamo entrati in una fase, la famosa fase 3, un po' in tutto il mondo, salvo ovviamente incrociando le dita di ritorno di nuove ondate, però quali effetti magari a valere nel tempo ci saranno anche da questa crisi ancora sul trasporto e le assicurazioni collegate al trasporto. Ecco, io mi fermerei qua e passerei la parola a Michela per iniziare a entrare sulla parte più core, più vera del webinar.
Bene, buongiorno a tutti. Anche io tengo a ringraziare tutti i partecipanti, ho visto che siete veramente tanti. Prima di tutto, a beneficio forse di chi non ha ancora avuto modo di conoscere totalmente la nostra nuova struttura a seguito della fusione, faccio un breve cenno al nostro team Underwriting Marine, che è composto da 6 persone e che è suddiviso tra Genova e Milano. A Genova ci sono io con Giovanni Bersani, Melissa Giacoppo e Riccardo Galari. A Milano ci sono Davide D'Acquino e Angelo Lisciandra. Uno dei commitments di gruppo che ci sta veramente più a cuore è quello che dice from payer to partner, cioè come trasformare il ruolo dell'assicuratore da un mero soggetto che paga i sinistri e che per carità ovviamente deve pagare i sinistri quando sono coperti, però a un partner che cammina al fianco dei suoi clienti. Ed è proprio con questo spirito che abbiamo organizzato questo webinar. farvi conoscere meglio il team di Marine Risk Engineers che lavora per supportare sia noi come underwriters che voi come clienti e che spesso rimane nel backstage, non sempre viene valorizzato come dovrebbe e è difficile a volte far vedere veramente il loro valore. E in questo particolare periodo, che è totalmente nuovo per tutti noi, dove ci sono sfide che non sono mai state affrontate prima e che non si pensava sicuramente di dover affrontare, vorremmo riuscire a darvi qualche strumento in più per riflettere su come mitigare le eventuali problematiche che possono proprio emergere nella filiera della logistica e proprio perché queste problematiche possono impattare in maniera negativa proprio sul vostro business. Bene, adesso io lascio la parola a Pascal Mattei che vi illustrerà la sua nuova struttura ed entrerà nel merito di tutte queste problematiche.
Grazie a te, Michela. Benvenuti a tutti. Unfortunately, I will quite quickly change into English. I hope this won't be a big problem because even if I do understand Italian, believe me, you will understand me much better this way. So I didn't want to treat badly this nice language. So like Michela said, what we are going to do now during the next hour, more or less, is just a very brief introduction to AXA XL Marine Risk Consulting. So there's just one slide, a very short one. We will then go through the crisis, some of the impacts. Here I won't lose too much time on the impacts because these are mostly known to each of you. But we will rather try a bit to discuss what we could learn out of this and what we could eventually do to mitigate such a crisis if it should happen once more in a future situation. Obviously, it cannot be avoided. There's a think everyone knows this, and I don't think that anyone on the call has an expectation that we will come up with some recipe to avoid such a crisis, but at least to see what we have learned out of this, and to become a bit more resilient. And then obviously, please use the like it has been said by Chiara, you use the function of asking us questions or popping up points whenever you want, so that we have a couple of time at the end of the presentation to address your questions, your queries. So on the next slide, very briefly, as I said, just to show you what XL Risk Consulting is doing. So I am based in Zurich, and I do have a team of 13 people across the world. We are part of AXA XL Risk Consulting, where we have 380 something risk engineers. So it's quite a big structure. And in marine, we are basically addressing different type of perils, clearly physical damage, but everything also which is linked to the supply chain security, which leads us a bit to the topic of today. So that means we are looking at a more holistic way to look at risk and to find solution. This does also include natural perils, then the political risks, contractual and legal risk. And what we are trying to do is really to interact with the clients, to interact with the brokers, and to see how we can solve issues in terms of improving the security of the supply chain. This obviously has then a benefit on the insurance cover, which normally should deliver better results with this. So that was it in a nutshell. So it's a global structure, and among this global structure, we obviously have been confronted also with the problems on COVID-19, which are more of the topic here. And just on the next slide, Chiara, please. We have got the different points which did happen with respect of the COVID situation. So I mean, it's a big biblical introduction here, maybe a strong one with the apocalypse, the quattro cavalieri dell'Apocalisse, which are shown here a bit to introduce the topic, because at the end of the day, what happened was very historical. It was not the beginning of the end of the world, but it was certainly a bit the beginning of the end of the logistic structure we do know. This is why I chose this picture to introduce this, because obviously what happened had put the whole supply chain, the whole logistics structure, like we did it up to now, at danger, at peril, and it has also demonstrated how fragile the logistic can be, how resilient the supply chain would have to be, but it was not, because when it was hit with such a magnitude, we all lost a bit confidence that everything was working as it should have worked. So we got some violence in different countries. We obviously got disease. We got also the death toll, which has hit some of the countries harder than others. But we have also the white horse at the end, which is a bit in the Bible, or it's for the conquest, and for us it symbolizes a bit the solution we are trying to find in order to solve this crisis, and how to think about on what happens. Maybe just very quickly on the next slide, that was quite interesting to me to see when you are discussing with people at Firma or at Anra, also with risk managers. They have a catalog or a list. You know, those of you who are risk managers on the call know it better than myself. There is a list of a lot of perils which might strike the supply chain. And among this, you have a bit of everything. You have political risks. You have obviously trade barriers, problems linked to Brexit, problems linked to clearance with customs, technological risks with drones, strikes. You have issues with, for instance, labor workers unions. You could have strikes at the borders. You could have strikes of the truckers. Obviously, you have the whole economic uncertainty, the problem that in a global world there could be a lot of issues. But very interesting. You don't have any pandemic here, so this was really not a risk which, to that magnitude, has been put on the main issues the companies or the risk managers would like to address. And if we look at this list, COVID-19 has made most of them realizing at the same time. So we had some violence, we had problems at the borders, we had not trade wars, but at least trade sectors, trade lanes, which have been closed. There were obviously a lot of problems in the transport infrastructure to held up with the capacity. So it was a bit, for a couple of people, like putting 9/11 into the shadow and starting again with something even worse. And this is also a typical example of what we are call a systemic risk. So that means that obviously there are not so many insurance solutions for pandemics to respond to that. And I mean, we at AXA and other companies, also especially the London market, they have products, insurance products, where you can cover pandemics, where you can cover supply chain disruptions of this magnitude. But the problem, like always with this type of risks, is that we as insurance companies do not have a lot of statistics to calculate it, and it makes the solution very expensive. I can remember a couple of years ago at Firma, we had an interesting chat with risk managers, and they called us, "Look, you should have such a product." But at the end of the day, most of the calculation which has been made ended up that it would be a premium of about 10 or 15% of the turnover of a company to just to insure this kind of risks. And obviously, at the end of the day, no one will catch up with this cover. So that means that what Michaela said before, the payer to partner strategy is very important here, because we cannot talk about a traditional or even an innovative insurance product and pay claims. We really have to move to this partnership and to address these risks. These are risks which I believe, are still within the companies are entrepreneur risk, and they can be supported by risk management, which is developed to try to help the companies to face these risks, but not to insure them, which just wouldn't be possible because of the financial implication. So the response lies really in risk management and contingency. And if you look effectively here at the timeline of the outbreak, it was also quite interesting in that case that we started with a very slow development in Asia. And at that point, at the end, nobody was really interested into that. Obviously, there were some companies which already had problems in the early days with their suppliers, with supply chain, but the impact was still quite regional. And the main public, the people on the street, they didn't really care. So that was just one news more, or bad news more, on the telegiornale in the night, but that was it. So nobody was really interested in. And then once of a sudden, it spread over to Europe and also to the United States, to Latin America, and then it began. So not just for the sectors of the industries, the insurance industry or supply chain sectors or all of your industries, but really also for the man on the street, and people began panic. There was stockpiling some products. There were a lot of implications, and there were also implications in terms of the supply chain as such. For instance, so very interesting study which have been published, and well, I take this one among a lot of examples because it's talking about pasta, and I thought, yeah, since this presentation is done in Italy, there could be an interesting example. So, for instance, what happened with pasta is that people began really to stockpile a lot of these products, and this has made the demand rising by almost 200%. And at the same time, there were some bottlenecks, especially companies like Barilla or De Cecco. They are transforming almost half of the weight and the flour, which is important in Italy. So we are talking about 3 to 4 million tons. And all this has to be done very quickly in order to meet with the demand. But in Italy, at the same time, the outbreak was quite heavy. People couldn't go to work. There was confinement. There were problems with childcare because the schools stopped and so on. So there were less and less people working at those companies, less workforce, but more demand. And then the companies had to try to find some solution in urgency to meet that demand. And when they managed to do that in trying to make working the people at night during weekend shift, some small automatization problems they could solve. What happened then, they had a lot of pasta, but it couldn't be shipped out of Italy because there were no truckers available. Some ports were completely congested. And this again make the quantity of the products fall in terms of the supply. And people began to be even more panicking because they saw that there's no pasta coming in, so I have to buy even more. And this was a big circle which started, and this has given a lot of issues to illustrate how dependent we all are on the supply chain of a certain products, and this can be duplicated for each and every other product. So that we had shortages, we have consumption drop at the end, and then lockdown of a lot of companies with unemployment. And what we have seen as insurance company is that almost everyone has been completely caught off guard. So that means that no one was really prepared to do that, and that was also one of the main issues we could fix. And there was no preparedness, there was no contingency plan. Nothing has been really made to face these risks. So that the impact. So you see here on the picture, this is the port of New York. So what is happening is that most of the maritime industry was not directly impacted because the ships were still sailing, they were still loading and unloading, but the ports couldn't handle all this enormous amount of goods. So we ended up with ports completely congested, with containers getting lost in the system because no one exactly knew where they were placed. There was a slowdown of the customs, so there was no ability to clear. Then even though if it's cleared, you don't get a truck to bring it back to the end. And even if you find a truck, then maybe the consignee has locked down a facility. There are no people to accept the goods. At the end, we also have seen some increase of thefts, especially in Europe. At the beginning, theft of almost everything, and then at the end it was more theft of masks, of sanitary products, which could be obviously also sold on the black market. But on the other hand, we had also in other countries like Mexico or Brazil, where we do have in a normal time a lot of thefts. There was exactly the contrary. So there was much fewer theft than before due to the crisis, just because the black market was also on lockdown. So you have to imagine all this parallel industry. They had the same problems in how to have their their parallel supply chain made up, and they couldn't handle the goods, and a lot of bad quality truckers have been put out of the market. So we get the better trucks and the better drivers working, which at the end has given more security. So that was quite interesting to see how from country to country they were a bit different things happening. For us as insurance company, we had a lot of work to do with our clients in terms of the accumulation of values, because you have plants locking down, warehousing problems in order that goods are coming in but then cannot get out, and obviously there was also a huge peril in terms of the accumulation. Nothing happened to my knowledge, fortunately, in terms of large fires or this kind of risks. But it showed that there could have been a problem if something would have happened in terms of the value which are accumulated on the different stages of the supply chain, and this could have had a major impact on the industry also in terms of losing a lot of goods. So hopefully a lot of you have seen our recommendation. We have published during the crisis, so we tried to be a bit proactive and to give different hints and tips in order to mitigate the positive losses, especially with respect to warehousing. You have here one of the example of what we have published during this period, that it was really key that all the security and everything which has to be kept in place, also in terms of workforce, in terms of security workforce, had to be done. So as an example here, obviously we asked clients to check if the warehouse was still at least operating at a certain level, that you don't just close the door, shut down the electricity and go home and wait for better days. So the idea here was really to find the resources and the people available to keep up with all the security measures, and to have also guards on site to help secure. The next slide is a bit similar, where we were talking about other measures. Chiara, if you can just jump to the next slide, please. So again here, massive issues in terms of warehouse management. This is certainly also because of the shelf life of certain products, which were accumulating, and they could perish, they could be damaged just by longer storage. There was also because of the shortage of carriers, and a lot of clients also in a panic tried to use these platforms of freight exchange, or try to maybe to take some trucks which still were around but of less good quality, of lesser standard, and this obviously could have given problems in terms of the theft rate. So again, it was quite important during that time to have a kind of not a recovery plan, because this was still not recovery, but really a plan on how to fix it, how to maintain at least a certain level of security. And we were quite surprised that the market was very demanding on that, because again, no one really expected that this would happen to such a magnitude. So that was a bit, the surprise was not that the problem is there, but the surprise was really that the problem was hitting at the same time a bit everywhere and everyone. And obviously it was people had also a lot of issues, because you could have diseases in your family, you could have childcare issues, and obviously maybe it's not the top priority then to put security on a warehouse if you have your own family at risk. But this really was also a lesson to get the priorities done, but where there was maybe not the priority, at least to have a list of preparation handy, because it's always much easier if you know exactly what to have to look at, if you have checklists, if you know exactly where the risks are, rather to handle a bit in an uncoordinated way. So that was also a bit the meaning of these recommendations, this accompaniment we did. But then comes the big questions, and that's the main topic of today, which is the most difficult and the most challenging also to solve. Comes the questions illustrated by a couple of issues on this slide, where we started then to sit down, or the industry had to start to sit down and to look really back and see what are the problems, what are the issues, how can we reinvent the supply chain, the risk management. And effectively, it was on the other slides to come, we put the people to really try to think about, and it's very basic here, but believe me, most of the companies we were talking to were not really prepared to answer to that, or some company have these questions, but who did really act? That was the main issue. Are we sure? And I'm quite certain that most people of the audience will recognize themselves also, that there are basic questions, but did you really act on them? If they have been asked what really has been done or what could have been done. So it's certainly very important to know what do we need. So what do we need in terms of products? So where we have our pasta fabric, we need wheat, we need flour, we need eggs, we need water. All these questions. Well, what are we really resilient on to get in terms to secure our production? And then who can supply? Once we know what we do need, well, where does it come from? Who are the suppliers, and where are the suppliers? And we are living in a very global world, and most of the flour, for instance, for pasta comes from Canada. So we have to recognize this. So Canada is not really the door next to Italy, so that there is a certain supply chain to be held up. And are there many suppliers? How many suppliers do we have? And then how is it moved? How does it come from Canada to Italy? What are the voyages? Obviously, there will be a lot of maritime, but then you need trucks. And where do you store it? Is it stored in your plant? Do you have external warehouses? Do you have logistics service providers who are taking care of the warehousing? So a lot of things which really have to be cleared up, and cleared up in a complete manner. So that means not just looking at the main suppliers, but also obviously looking at upstream and downstream to the smaller suppliers, because even the smaller suppliers, they are also hit by pandemics, and they could need some help in terms of resilience or of recovery plan. And the problem, obviously, nothing new. It's that nowadays, with the global world, the supply chain is more over longer distance, but with less time. So it's a paradox. 10 years ago, or even more, looking back, most of us, we had a lot of stocks, we had a lot of goods, production was more or less next door. But now we have less and less time to get the pieces and bits and ticks together. So we are most of the time just in time, or we are very, very short in terms of the lead time. But the goods are coming from far away. So that's a bit the paradox in our modern world, and which makes us heavily dependent. Companies started, especially here in Switzerland, where I'm based, started companies to think about China. Yeah, why have we been to China? Shouldn't we come back to Europe? Or rather than to have a plant in China, shouldn't we have a plant in Poland or Hungary, which at least it's still a cheaper country, but at least it's not so far away. So we don't have this very, very long supply chains to face. But a lot of companies then turned back and said, yeah, it's nice to try to avoid China. But if you look, for instance, at these figures you have on your screen, you get 40% of car components, or over half of all the electronic supplies for every type of industries, and even more, 70% of all the pharma ingredients to make the medicaments or vials in our countries are coming from China. So it seems to be clear, without being a big economist, that it's very difficult to just sweep away the Chinese market and to say we just bring this to another country. Then obviously we can think about redundancies, which is typical risk management tool also. How can it be redundant? How can I have another plant or a second plant, a third plant? Reconsider all the outsourcing. Are there some things I can do by myself? So it's not really rocket science, but it is some basics which we should take as a takeaway. But then the problem comes also with the costs implied. So redundancy, everyone can dream of having the main supplier in China and the second one in Hungary, but who can really afford the cost for that? So there is in the redundancy risk management option, there is obviously a very, very huge cost impact, and this was also quite difficult to try to solve. So that's a bit the frame where we are, the questions people had to ask, and the lessons learned for the supply chain of this huge impact is that people need much more visibility on the supply chain. And again, it seems to be basics. You may think, well, this guy is really talking about some points we all know. Of course, we know that we need visibility, and most of the companies, they have visibility, but it should be improved and increased. So we need to have a better granularity and to be much more conscious of where our goods are coming from and who is the main, or are the main suppliers, are the smaller ones. And this is something which almost no one did, is include the smaller suppliers into the analysis. So we always think about the one who is providing us with most of the products, but we don't really are interested, or we don't even know sometimes who the smaller suppliers are. So the risk manager, he has an overview of the very big flows, but he does not know that the procurement manager, maybe he has a complete different strategy of sourcing, because it makes sense to work with smaller company. And he thought, and this was correct also to think this, that a lot of smaller ones is already always better than just one or two large one. But with the crisis, we have seen so that even the smaller ones are hit at the same level, but they are not considered in terms of risk management. So no one is really interested in how they are organized and how their disaster recovery plan look like, how they could face eventually this type of crisis. So we have really to understand the resilience of the partners, to be sure that they have something in place, or maybe to help them to see how this could be done. So really go away from the first or second tier suppliers, but really dig deeper into smaller ones, and obviously also having a look at their financial capacity, because a smaller one maybe is not so resilient in terms of financial possibilities. But even there could be a couple of small fixings to improve their resistance to such a crisis. So each upstream flow, very important, also the downstream flow, because we have seen that a lot of companies, they can produce, and but they cannot sell because the sales point are closed, because the receiver, the distributor, the wholesaler in a country cannot take up goods. So the supply chain analysis has really to go in the two senses, but the upstream obviously is the most important, and looking at least that each and every company gets the goods they should get. So this contingency planning, recovery planning, nothing new, but has certainly to be reviewed in terms of this crisis, because normally these plans are more addressing political risks, fire, natural perils, all this type of risks which have been identified. We have seen at the beginning by risk managers, but again, none of these risks are really addressing pandemics. So this is why we should all get over the book again and see how we could address this. And this is then the main challenge, because how could we do this? Obviously, you cannot avoid a pandemic to start. So this requires quite a lot of innovative, of out of the box thinking. That means you have also to consider what happened in terms of the behavior of the consumer. So we have seen in a lot of industrial sectors that people are shifting away from the shops, because the shops are closed, and anyway I cannot get out, so there is no point in getting my stuff out. But at the same time, I'm at home. I don't really know what to do at home, so people started to buy a lot of fancy things over the internet. And if you look at the performances, and most of the internet-based e-commerce company, they have even experienced a real growth of their productivity and of their margins during this crisis, because a lot of people were just trying to find anything on the internet. And this has made in certain country even the postal service to come to a complete disruption, because they were just flooded by parcels and by goods. So this is obviously, it depends in which sector you are, but this is certainly an innovative thing to think about, that if there is a possibility to have a parallel channel, distribution channel on e-commerce, or on shifting, on addressing this consumer shift, to be sure that you can reach the customer. So this demand is certainly something quite interesting, and it was also linked to the way that companies need to have a better end-to-end inventory visibility, so that they could really steer also the supply chain, to know exactly where are the goods which are either finished, ready to be sent, or semi-manufactured, so to get much more visibility on this one. And yeah, if you could go back to the slide, sorry, Chiara. This could mean that there will be new technologies being the solution. So people started to think about 3D printing, which is a bit science fiction now for certain sectors, but it had a tremendous start. That in the US, a lot of companies they really started to think about, yeah, shouldn't we try to send our goods not only via e-commerce, but also with 3D printing solutions, just to reach the customers. Automation, everything which can be done without people was also quite at stake, because at the end the disease was hitting people, but not the trucks, or not the supply chain, the immaterial supply chain, immaterial assets themselves. So an answer relies certainly in better digitization and tracing. And here I'm really a strong believer myself that this could help, because having a monitoring the whole supply chain by what we are calling connected cargo. That means having tracer trackers following the goods, which enables a company to see exactly where the products are, what is the demand, are there some shifts in the demand. You can really be much more predictable when you have a better tracking and tracing in place. So these are still solutions which do exist. They're sometimes are still quite costly, but if you look at prices of sensors, they were to be bought for $20 5 years ago, and now you have some for 20 cents. So it's really something which becomes much more democratic, if I can say so, but available at least. And this will enable also to have a good overview of the products, and also to map the supply chain, because obviously if in one day, maybe I will be dead by this time, but in one day, if we have a complete tracking and tracing of any components of goods, you will have a very good understanding of your supply chain, and you will exactly see where the problems may arise or where the dependencies are, and you can also react. If you have a pandemic in a certain country, you can quite quickly shift, or try to shift at least from out of this country. So this will certainly enable some arrangement in terms of the supply chain, but comes along with the new structure of the supply chain. And having this in place, there will be some big data available generally. There's also some problems and some issues in terms of confidentiality, but now we already have a lot of data in this world, but they are not aggregated. So if we talk about tracking and tracing, a lot of people do this, but there is no aggregation of all this data, and obviously with a completely anonymous aggregation, so without any indication of trade patterns of a specific company, but there will be a lot of more visibility on the supply chain, and also some predictions in terms of accumulations, in terms of again of shifting of the demand and so on. So the only way to address pandemics in terms of the supply chain will, to my opinion, go through this new innovation, to out-of-the-box thinking, because you can do a lot of improvement, you can do a lot of things on the traditional way, but at the end of the day, if the whole world is hit by one event, it will be quite hard to be or to stay resilient with traditional supply chain. A lot of people are also talking about blockchain in this context. To me, blockchain is really something a bit. We had a lot of discussions on blockchain, but I have to confess I have never seen something working on blockchain in the real world. So this is anyways something which starts now to be studied and implemented, especially in terms of, for instance, the custom control. So that means each and every stage during the supply chain where you have manual interaction of documents, of physical check, of signing papers, like the way bills, for instance, in the maritime world. So nowadays, most of the freight, the way bills, the BLs, bill of ladings, are electronically, which was absolutely not possible 5-10 years ago. No one would say, no, electronic bill of lading, it doesn't work, because you cannot make accreditive, you cannot make letter of credits, but it works. And custom clearances, especially in the US after 9/11, they start not with blockchain, because it didn't exist yet at that time, but they started to think about how can we automatize everything. How can I do that all the documents go from A to Z, from the first supplier over to the manufacturers, down to the wholesalers, and to the final consignee in a complete automatized and electronical way? And this is where blockchain is now starting to enter into the supply chain of the future. And obviously, a blockchain cannot fall ill. So I mean, the systems, obviously there are other risks, cyber risks, and other perils, but a pandemic or disease will not hit blockchain supported systems. So this is certainly something which is right at the beginning of the possibilities, of the opportunities, but will certainly, if it evolves, and I'm sure it will, from the proof of concept level where we are now to real life application, there will be certainly a big opportunity to get some solutions down there. But again, it needs innovative, out of the box thinking. So what can we do for you? Basically, the idea is not to make a big commercial show here, but having all this in mind, what can an insurance company like AXA XL do for you in order to address all this? And I think it's a combination of different skills. So we have the two next slides are just showing where we are in terms of the insurance industry to support this new innovative thinking. So the first one, this one which is presently on screen, is, let's say, the old way, the grandpa and grandma risk engineering or risk consulting, like we did it before and like we still do it with success. So it's again having risk consulting or supply chain risk engineering seen as something very global, very holistic. That means to have full control, full security along the whole supply chain, and this goes along the securing the supply chain. That means the prevention plan, identifying the risk, identifying the assets, see where the problems are. Having some critical operation also under control. So it's critical operation does not mean just heavy lift like here on the screen, but does also mean all what we are calling the critical control points. That means on each stage where your product will go from one people to another's hand, to see how this is done. What are these people doing with your products? How long will they have their products? What is the need for them to having them? In order again to get a better view of your supply chain and to see who maybe is not the best partner or who could be eventually at risk if something happens, and to really also with the view on pandemics to determine how resilient they are or how can they be interchanged if something happened. And then we are coming to the next supply chain intelligence, the next box, which is a bit here, the transition to the new world, the transition to a new era, where we use this connected cargo opportunities to have a better monitoring of the supply chain, but an electrical or electronical digital monitoring with what I was just talking before, so blockchain or sensors or whatever. So this is certainly the first thing which we are able to propose you, which we are able to do, and where it really is worth to have a look at, to consider all the risks. And then this has to be combined with something which is a bit newer, which is currently, especially in Italy, in development now at AXA XL. We have a couple of team in Milano talking about this and starting to go really into real life. So it's not just science fiction. So it's something which really is starting now with a couple of industrial Italian clients, where we combine this traditional approach, this traditional supply chain approach, with a more generic view on the supply chain, but where we are going to map and to identify the risks. So it's a bit a summary of what has been said during this webinar. The objective is to get a list of the suppliers and to rank them by type of vulnerability, by type of perils, and this does also obviously includes pandemia, to see if there is a pandemic, who might be better at stake, what is the importance of these people, having some estimation of what could happen if they lose 20, 30, 40% of the workforce, so that we will try to do simulations to see what will be the downtime, what is the impact for them, but then cascading down also for you, because if there is an important supplier and he loses half of his workforce, you can be sure that this will have a cascading effect onto your company. But if it's a smaller one, maybe it's not a problem. But if all the small ones are all in the same area in Wuhan, for instance, you will get the same problem. So you will have to make decisions then to decide, should I spread them, couples in Asia, why not Latin America or Europe, whatever. But at least there is a way to find a possibility to discuss where should we better have our main or our small suppliers located. The focus for the time being is fire, natural hazards, environmental, but obviously we are adding also now this supply chain component with pandemics or with traditional supply chains. So again, it's a combination of both. And the idea is to have really, at least we propose to get thinking about 3 levels of the suppliers, because obviously if you look at the image, you could have 2 or 3 main ones, second tiers maybe you have 10, or third tiers you have 50, and then you could have thousands of smaller ones, and it's very difficult to get an overview of all of them. Again, with tracing, tracking, blockchain, it could be easier, but for the time being, that is not working. So we have to address this and fix a level of confidence. And what we are proposing here is really to map the interdependency of all these suppliers among themselves and towards your second or first tier suppliers, and then to decide to make some priority. Obviously, it's clear that at the lower level of where we have thousands of them, you cannot do much because you want to organize thousands of visits, but at least you have mapped them and you can make an educated decision on how resilient this would be. Then we are going really to screening of second or third tier suppliers to go a bit more into details to see how are they prepared, if they are prepared, what would be the response, what would be their backup plans if pandemics happen again, what are the stock management, because we could dream about a lot of stocks, but no one will take a lot of stocks, or maybe we will do it for a couple of weeks. But mankind has not much memory, so within 6-7 months or 1 year, nobody will really think about what happened now, and we will start again to resume the activity as we did before, and that's the big mistake. Then just to forget it and say, yeah, let's see, maybe it happens, maybe not, but we haven't really solved the problem. So the idea is really to have a supplier screening in order to get a better view on that. And then finally, to have a supplier audit for those who are much more important in the way of the supply chain security. So I do fully recognize that what you have heard, it's not really the philosopher's stone. So it's perhaps it's not really the answer you were expecting from us in terms of solutions. But again, there's no magical solution. So I would be very frank to everyone. There is nothing which can be really take out of the shelf and say, here you get it, and that's done. So it's really part of a larger process, implying new technologies, new thinking. But I hope that at least you don't feel alone in that terrible world of pandemics, that you can see that there are solutions. It's worth to discuss. It's worth to pick up your phone, talk to the suppliers, talk to your partners, talk to your clients, talk to your insurance company, hopefully AXA, and really see what can be done in order to find solutions. So there are solutions. They are not, again, all ready and available. But I think, and I strongly believe that there are a lot of possible answers in order at least to mitigate the risk, so that there's no way that we will avoid anything, but at least that companies are better prepared. And I hope that if we do a webinar in 5 years talking about pandemics, we won't start the webinar and just saying, look, no one was really prepared because there was no contingency plan, there was no plan on that, and we are not caught off guard. So I'm quite sure that with time this can be solved, even though there's no direct clear answer now, but at least I hope this presentation give you a bit of flavor of how you should look at, or how we could look at together in terms of innovative thinking. So that would conclude this part of the webinar. So I'm ready to take up discussions or questions. Carlo, I don't know if we have some reactions from the audience.
Grazie Pascal, purtroppo il tempo è molto tiranno perché come dire, sta scorrendo rapidamente. Hai fatto una interessantissima come dire, racconto di quello che deve essere il processo risk management futuro. Su questo devo dire, vorrei fare prima delle considerazioni e poi una domanda. Non credo che ce ne sia il tempo per farne tante domande, credo Chiara. Però una considerazione, innanzitutto quello che hai raccontato e come risk manager lo condivido in toto, in pieno. Ti posso dire che sicuramente nelle aziende più strutturate, multinazionali, sono tutti processi che sono già partiti, ma non sono partiti anche pre-Covid, perché quello che va ripensato è sicuramente un diverso approccio al modello di supply chain. Certamente il Covid ha in qualche maniera accentuato, come dire, certe difficoltà che però erano già state valutate anche prima del Covid, l'attenzione maggiore a una maggiore selezione e diversificazione dei fornitori, non una eccessiva concentrazione di fornitori in determinate aree geografiche per portare le merci da una parte all'altra del mondo, sicuramente passare da una logica di long distance trip ad una logica più di corto raggio, passare anche da una logica, per anni le aziende sono costruite e basate sul modello just in time, quindi senza magazzini. Oggi abbiamo scoperto con questa Covid-19 quanto sia anche importante avere una certa capacità di resilienza dovuta al del traffico che viene bloccato, quindi avere la capacità anche di un certo stoccaggio di magazzino permette alla propria attività di non fermarsi. Tutte queste attività sono interessantissime e le stiamo facendo, e mi fa piacere anche che un player come voi sia attenta a risalire il processo a monte, accompagnando il cliente nell'analisi del risk management. Però dall'altro non dobbiamo dimenticarci che poi alla fine il rischio non è mai zero. Il rischio si può risalire con voi ci accompagnate anche a migliorarlo il risk management, benissimo, però io poi ho bisogno, perché se arrivo a un modo perfetto in cui arrivassi ad annullare il rischio, non ho più bisogno del risk transfer, non ho più bisogno dell'assicurazione. Quindi io continuerò ad aver bisogno dell'assicurazione. Non dimentichiamoci che l'assicurazione nasce con i trasporti. Il primo contratto nella storia del mondo è stato fatto sull'assicurazione trasporti. Come l'assicurazione trasporti invece, vorrei capire da te Michela o da Pascal, si evolverà, ovviamente così come si evolverà il processo di risk management. C'è la possibilità di avere magari dei rischi, un nuovo wording, un prodotto innovativo, dove magari ci sia anche una componente di danni conseguenziali coperta all'interno da un rischio trasporto, dove ci possa essere magari un prodotto su base alternative risk transfer da offrire al proprio cliente una volta che si è accompagnato, come dire, nel processo di risk management e quindi lo avete profilato bene dal punto di vista del rischio. Ecco, questa è la domanda che vorrei farvi. Sorry for my Italian, Pascal. I don't know if it is clear to you. I try to summarize a few words. My question is, okay, it's very good that you want to go with your client along the risk management process. But which innovative product can expect to receive in near future from you in terms of risk transfer or alternative risk transfer solution?
Risk transfer could be very, very difficult because, as we said, for the time being, we don't have much statistics, and we could certainly have a solution right at hand, but nobody will be able to pay the premium because it will be too costly for the time being. But with time and with more granularity you get in the big data, in the innovation products, so to help tracking and tracing, then we will get a bit more accuracy in terms of the availability of an insurance product to a certain affordable price. Obviously, alternative risk transfer could be a bit different because here you could imagine in a certain trade sector funding options, funding opportunities. But again, people need data, and what we don't have yet is data, especially linked to pandemics. So this is why I was a strong believer on blockchain or tracking, tracing, monitoring to gather much more data.
Thank you, Pascal. I don't know if there are any questions from you, Chiara, or
No, no, I don't have any question. It's just your duty to make the question. Actually, I spent the whole webinar translating what Pascal was saying, just to be sure that attendees understood everything, since they have to take the test. Credo che ora possiamo magari iniziare con il test. Allora, io proietterò le istruzioni. Perfetto. È il test che deve sostenere chi ha richiesto l'aggiornamento per la formazione RUI-IVAS. Le istruzioni le vedete sullo schermo, dovete scaricare e aprire sullo smartphone l'app Socrative, oppure potete andare all'indirizzo che è indicato. Inserire come room name la parola Anra. Scusate. Poi vedrete un poligono che carica in attesa che l'organizzatore lanci l'esame, ma credo che il mio organizzatore che è in back-end l'abbia già lanciato, quindi inserite nella finestra che vi compare in questo ordine cognome e nome. Non nome e cognome, non nickname, perché sennò diventiamo matti poi a mandarvi gli attestati. Un po' come non si fa nelle firme, cognome e nome. Poi procedete rispondendo alle domande a risposta multipla, possibilmente dando la risposta giusta. E le domande sono 6. Alla fine dovrete cliccare sul terminal test. Una volta terminato, voi vedrete comunque che il poligono continua a girare e compare una scritta, ad esempio in attesa di altre azioni da parte dell'organizzatore. In ogni caso il vostro test è stato registrato e archiviato, quindi potete tranquillamente a quel punto uscire dalla app o dalla pagina del browser. Posso chiedere, Anna, come stiamo procedendo?
Sì, molto bene, stanno facendo tutti la prima domanda, sono in tanti e niente, adesso vedo se c'è qualche problema, vi aggiorno.
Non si collega. Allora, se non riuscite ad accedere alla pagina, assicuratevi innanzitutto di utilizzare il browser Google Chrome.
Preferibile,
sì. Sì, se ancora non si collega, controllate che la vostra connessione stia funzionando. Per recuperare banda potete temporaneamente chiudere il visualizzatore di GoToWebinar delle webcam, perché come sapete il video prende sempre molta banda. Va bene Carlo, noi adesso in realtà lasceremo aperto il test. Vedo che non ci sono grandi problemi tecnici da parte dei partecipanti. Lasciamo aperto il test altri 10-15 minuti in modo che tutti possano terminare. Tanto non è collegato ovviamente al software di GoToWebinar. Io ricordo che come sempre il video e le slide dell'evento saranno disponibili sul sito Anra nei prossimi giorni e che vi invieremo nel caso voleste maggiori informazioni o anche contattare direttamente Excel i riferimenti sia dei relatori che dell'intero team. Lascio a voi gli ultimi saluti e vi ringrazio.
Io mi associo al ringraziamento a Michela e a Pascal per il loro contributo. Spero di avere nuovamente occasione magari di interloquire anche più tecnicamente sulle coperture dei trasporti e comunque grazie ancora.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for the organization, the audience, and I hope there is some takeaways of value. Thank you very much for hosting me.
For me, sure. Bye.
Grazie a tutti.
Bye. Ciao, grazie.
Bye.